are in chapter 50 of Tanya, the last chapter discussing creating loves. And this is, as we said, a different type of love, because love is generally a manifestation of kindness. This love's not. It's a manifestation of strength. Love flows downward like water. This love doesn't. This love is fire. Love is like the priest. The priest is the man of kindness. This love, as we're going to discuss today, is the Levite, the Levi, the man of strength, the man of Bura. So what's this love? Why is this love so different? Because this love, all loves, we said, are expressing what you want to gain from something. Your attraction for something, and therefore how you want that thing to feed you, to connect to you. But not this love. This love isn't about self. This love is so strong because it's really the complete extinguishing of self, just to be one with God's self, just to be focused on God's reality. The fire, it's not flowing down, it's not feeding, it's not nurturing, it's going up. It's the escape of the soul, leaving the constraints of physicality, the confines of the body, and just being one with God. If you do that, actually, you wouldn't be living down here and you sort of wouldn't have reality up there. Don't care. Who cares? Not the point. The point is God. The point is His reality. The point is this love that is just like fire. So we are in the middle of discussing this fire-like love, and we explained the idea of the fire. And we said this fire-like love creates enormous thirst. You're thirsty for God. It's an unquenchable love because it's really not about being quenched. It's not about you, it's not about feeding you, it's not about nurturing you, it's not about quenching you. So it doesn't get quenched. What would quenched mean? That I become one with God and therefore I expire and I don't exist and I die? How does one quench such a love? So it's enormous thirst. That was step one, which we discussed last week, which leads to exactly what we're about to read now. The person becomes like lovesick. Imagine this enormous burning thirst that never gets quenched. Well, it makes you sick. Sick with the love. Which leads to this third level, from the thirst to the sick to the klois hanefesh, the expiration of the soul. What expiration of the soul literally means, as the soul escapes the confines of the body, and in this world the person is dead. So obviously there would be no, he'd be done. So it's not that the person actually gives into the desire and dies, but is holding in that place of just wanting it, desiring escape of the soul from the body. It's just because it's just about God, just focusing on God. So what's the body? What's physicality? What's service? And then we're told no. But actually the point is service. And with all this desire, with the thirst and the lovesick and the expiration of the soul, with all that, come back down and serve. All of that escape passion, channel into come back down and serve. And that's how this love is fulfilled. So we're reading inside. We're on page 140, 10 lines from the top of the page. We are 10 lines from the top of the page, and we are in the middle of the line. Umizeh ba'li de tzimon. The person is going to come to such a thirst. My soul is thirsting for you, which we said isn't just like bringing a verse. What do I even need a verse to prove this? It's so logical. But actually a person could say, thirst? Why should there be any thirst here? The soul is a piece of God. The soul has God. No, nafshi. King David is saying, my soul is thirsting for God. So yes, my soul is a piece of God, and at the same time, my soul is thirsting for God. And then from this, and when you're thirsting, and it's not fulfilled, it makes you sick. And afterwards you come to like lovesick, meaning an even more intensification of this thirst. It's like you're sick with this thirst, so to speak. And afterwards it comes to the state of just wanting the expiration of the soul, that literally the soul should leave the body and just be fused above with God. Now, this is not saying the fulfillment of that desire, because then, as we said, the person would be dead. But this is the desire. So from thirst to I'm sick with this love to my soul just has to get out of here. So it becomes the same, we're going the same direction, but more and more and more intense. My soul is longing for you. My soul is longing to expire for you because it doesn't want to be here. It wants to be above with you. So from here comes forth the source of the souls of the Levites, of the Levium, as they are in this world. So as we mentioned last week, in our divine service, we have human beings who are embodying spiritual services. The priest, the Kohen, and the Levite, the Levi. Now we know the hierarchy, probably all know this, that the top is the priest, and then under him is the Levite. The Levites would serve the priest. In the temple, they would do two things. They were the opener and closers of the gates, and they were the singers. They had choirs. They had those that sang with their mouth. They had those that sang with instruments, sort of reflecting, actually, since it's the Mittler of his day. He had a choir, literally a choir, was around for about 10 years of his leadership, where some were singers and some played instruments. And this was all part of the divine service. So the Levites were a divine choir, a choir in the temple serving God. And which is higher? Well, obviously the priest. Right, correct. And the spiritual source of the priest is kindness, is chesed. And the spiritual source of the Levite is gevura, is strength, is judgment. Okay, so that all matches. Chesed, gevura, kindness, strength, priest, Levite. But we're saying this love, which is so strong, is not a chesed love. It's not a love from kindness. That's not as strong. It's a love from gevura. It's a love from strength. It's a very strong love. So therefore, very logically, if this is an ultra strong love, stronger than the regular loves, it is reflected in the service of gevura, of strength, which is the service of the Levite. So it sort of makes perfect sense, and it sort of doesn't make sense at all. Meaning, on one hand, it makes perfect sense. This love is not a love of chesed. It's not a love of kindness. This is a strong love. This is a stronger love. This is a different love. This is a love of gevura. This is a love of strength. All right, that matches below. The priest is a man of kindness. The Levite is gevura, is strength. So this love is like the Levite. Perfect, 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 except we're saying this love is more powerful than the regular love. And the Levite was secondary to the priest. The priest is, the head honcho, obviously. He's the priest. The Levites served in the temple, but the priests were the priests of the temple. So everything I'm saying matches until I come to the bottom line. It doesn't make sense at all. Why is the Alter Rebbe connecting this love to the Levites when we know the Levites were secondary to the priest? And we're saying this love is greater than a regular love, which would be like the service of the priest. So that's the obvious question. And the Rebbe goes on to explain this, as we see here in the parentheses. Ula asid, and by the redemption in the future, sha'olam yis'ala, when the world will be elevated, yihiyu heim hakayanim, the priests will be the Levites. Ukmosha Kasev, as Harizal and as the Arizal writes, al pasuk on the verse, v'hakayanim halaviyim, and the priests the Levites. So what does that mean? And the priests the Levites? So the Arizal, the second greatest Kabbalist of all times, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, explains, halaviyim, shehalaviyim shel achshav, that those that are today Levites, yihiyu koyanim la'asid, they will be the priests in the future. So is this clarifying? Sort of. Yeah, I guess. What does it say? What the Rebbe is saying is, yes, you totally understand why this love is like the Levites, because the love is strength, and the Levites are strength, and it matches, but it doesn't match, because the Levites are weaker than the priests. So the Rebbe says, but that's only now. By Mashiach, by the redemption, when everything will get straightened out to be its real reality, not the in exile, upside down world we live in, the Levites' energy will emerge as dominant. As the verse says, and the priests, the Levites, as the Arizal explains, that the Levites of today will be the priests of the future, meaning simply, as we understand this simply, that by the times of the redemption, the Levites will be superior to the priests. Why? Well, for exactly the reason we're talking about. Because the priests embody kindness, the Levites embody strength, and nowadays, of those two energies, Generally, we think of kindness as dominant. I mean, we'd rather have kindness than strength. We'd rather have God's kindness than strength. And so we have kindness and then strength. That's the order. Chesed and then Gvura. Kindness and then strength. So the priest and then the Levite. But by the redemption, it's not going to be like that. By the redemption, this quality of strength will be supreme. How do we know this? Well, it actually says this in the Talmud, in talking about the three forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that by Mashiach, by the redemption, we're going to say to Isaac, you are our father. Meaning, this is not knocking Abraham, and this is not knocking Jacob. But they all represented different energies. Abraham, kindness. We love kindness. Jacob, compassion. We love compassion even more. Isaac, strength. Strength. Ooh, strength makes me nervous. Strength means like I'm going to be judged. Strength means like I'm not going to be worthy. So that's how we look at it nowadays. But by Mashiach, by the redemption, that's going to be the ultimate spiritual energy from God. And therefore, by Mashiach, we'll say to Isaac, and you, Ki ata avinu, you, Isaac, are our father. There's a long discussion about this when we speak of Hillel and Shammai. Right? In the times of the Talmud, we have these two great, great, great sages from the greatest of the greats, Hillel and Shammai, who represented these very different energies. Hillel was the embodiment of kindness, right? Like the famous story when the convert is coming and saying, teach me the whole Torah on one leg, and Shammai is like, get out of here. And Hillel, figures it out in one line. Or when someone said, I make you a bet, I can get you to make, have Hillel lose his temper on you. And he's trying. So it's like Hillel says, I'd rather you lose all the money in the world than I lose my temper, right? Sorry, Charlie. Hillel embodied kindness. Shammai embodied strength, judgment, discrimination. And generally, of the two, we follow Hillel. There were disagreements between these sages, very few between them, very, very few. But among their students and their students' students, as the generations went on, there became many, many, many disagreements in terms of the law because of this very different pivot. Hillel, kindness, Shammai, strength, judgment, or as decoded by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Hillel, what we have in actuality, Shammai, what we have in potential. Now, when we're looking at this, we could say, yeah, we like kindness. Yeah, we like actuality. Yeah, we like Hillel. All that's good and that's great, and that's generally who we follow. And at a certain point, the Supreme Court, the Sanhedrin, said, we can't have some Jews doing this and some Jews like this. So we're going to go case by case, and we're going to figure out each one, and we're going to make a vote, and majority wins, and that's who the Jewish people have to follow. And most of the times, case by case by case, Hillel won, so to speak. His side won. His verdict won. And therefore, generally today, in all the disputes between Hillel and Shammai, the Jewish people follow Hillel. But by Mashiach, it's going to change. By Mashiach, and remember we said about Isaac, you are our father. Gevurah, strength, that will be dominant because we'll be able to live that way. Nowadays we can't. It's too intense for us. It's too difficult for us. It's too hard for us. But by Mashiach, we'll be able to live that way, and it is a higher way to live. Just as it's explained why when the Sanhedrin, when the Supreme Judicial Court voted, almost every time they voted for Hillel, because Shammai's approach was even more mind-boggling, brilliant than Hillel's. And it was so brilliant that the majority of the Supreme Court couldn't follow it. So they didn't understand it. So they couldn't vote for it. They could say, like, I know you're smarter, so I know you're probably right, but a judge is supposed to, make pass judgment based on what he understands. This isn't like blind belief here. And Hillel, I understand. So actually, when Mashiach comes, there's going to be a revote. Whoever's going to be sitting on this Supreme Court of the Jewish people with the resurrection of all the greatest of all times, who knows who's going to be on that Supreme Court? With our minds completely free of all the filters and fog of exile. And everybody's going to understand Hillel's approach, and it's far more brilliant. And they're going to vote for Hillel. They're going to vote for Shammai. And that's going to be the judgment, meaning gevura. Strength is going to be dominant. Because we will have the strength to live on that level. And for many deep reasons that we're not going to go into now, it's actually an even higher level of serving God. So what the Rebbe is saying here, that the Levites of today will be the priests of redemption, is saying that by the times of Mashiach, just as Isaac, embodiment of strength, will be dominant, just as Shammai, embodiment of strength, will be dominant, the Levites will be dominant. It's all the same thing. Strength, strength, strength. Isaac, Yitzchak, Shammai, the Levites, Leviim, Gevur, 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 strength, strength, strength. That will be the dominant energy of Mashiach. So yes, I'm saying this love is a love of strength. It's a more powerful love than the regular one. And therefore it's embodied by the Levites. And don't worry, you could say, oh, Levites, well, that already makes it weaker, not stronger. No, because the ultimate truth is Mashiach. And by the ultimate truth, the Levites will be the priests. Now, it's just an interesting PS to all this, postscript to all this, is that we could say, wait a minute, Torah is not supposed to change. The priests were promised that they would be the priests forever. Aaron and his sons will have this priesthood forever. So how could it be that by Mashiach, the Levites will become the priests? Well, the priests are now chopped liver? They lost their priesthood status? They're going to become the Levites? Like we're going to switch? The priests go down, the Levites go up. I mean, how could the priests go down? How could the priests stop being priests? They were promised they're going to have the priesthood forever. So there's an interesting answer to this, that no, of course, the priests will always be the priests. What does the Arizal mean by saying the Levites of now will be the priests of the future? He means it actually very literally. What he means is, those people that are born as Levites, why are they born as Levites? Because their soul is the soul of a Levite. Well, by Mashiach, they will be born as the priests. The Levites of now, those people that are now born as Levites, by Mashiach, they'll be born as priests. So it's not that the priests are going to go down and the Levites are going to go up. By Mashiach, the priests will continue to be the priests. We can't take away it from them. It's their right. It's their birthright. Forever. The priests will continue to be priests, but those priests that are born will be Levites of the previous incarnation. The Levites will now be born as priests. So you could say, if so, what's the gain? Like, so what? So they used to be Levites in a previous reality. Now they're priests, but they're priests. So the priests are still the priests. They're still the priests. So what changed? So the point is, the priests and Levites come from the same tribe, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of the Levites. Just some of those Levites are the priestly family. What makes one born a Levite and one born a priest? If your soul comes from Gevura, comes from strength, you're born a Levite. That's the source of the Levites. If your soul comes from kindness, you're born a priest. That's the priest, the person of kindness. And that's how it's been since the beginning of time until now. Aaron, as the first high priest, embodied kindness, embodied making peace, embodied reconnecting husband to wife, people that were in fights. He embodied this loving kindness. And all of his descendants come from this loving kindness. So from the beginning of time until now, you were from the tribe of Levi, and your soul was a soul of kindness, you were born a priest. You were from the tribe of Levi, and your soul was a soul of strength, you were born a Levite. But by Mashiach, it will change. And those people whose souls are souls of strength, they will be born the priests. Because since the energy of strength is dominant, but the priest, is the highest family, is the priestly family. So he's saying the Levites of today will be the priests of tomorrow. It means it very literally. Because these Levites will be reborn as the priests. That's how the priests will be the priests, but will be the Levites. Will have that strength. So all of this is to give a lot of backdrop and explanation on what the Rebbe is saying here. That if we're looking at the service of God of the priests and Levite, this love is a love of the Levites. But don't think that means it's a weaker love. Because by the ultimate time, by the time of Mashiach, that service of God of the Levites will be dominant. Because this love, a love of strength, is a stronger love. So what did the Levites do? What was their service? So I said they did two things. They opened and closed the gates, and they sang with their mouths, with musical instruments. They were expressing the song to God. So the Rebbe says, Avodas Lavim haisa laharim kol rina v'toida. B'shira v'zimra b'niguni ima v'chinas ratzu v'shuv. By their song, the service of the Levites was to raise up their voices in joy, in thanksgiving, in song, in musical instrument, in this wordless melody, in this pleasant song, v'chinas ratzu v'shuv. A song that expressed the longing and the return. Meaning, if you're sensitive to music, especially in some Hasidic melodies, you can hear this very strongly. The ratzu means the racing to God, and the shuv means come back down to planet Earth and do a commandment and serve. Ratzu, racing to God, shuv, come back down. That term, ratzu v'shuv, the racing and the return, is based on a verse that's actually not talking about us, it's talking about angels. The chayos, and the animals, meaning chayos HaKodesh, meaning the angels of the spiritual world of Yetzirah, of the world of emotion. So these very, very emotional angels, burning passion, emotion, they're in this movement of ratzu, of racing to God, and shuv, of coming back. Of ratzu, of racing to God, and shuv, and coming back. Now, an angel racing and return doesn't look like ours. Ours is much more significant. We are much more significant than angels. But theirs is very intense, because they're literally, angels are just beings of spiritual fire. And these are angels of emotion. This is the world of emotion. Their entire being is emotion. So the intensity of that racing, wow. But they have the shuv. They have to come back. So we are souls and bodies on planet Earth. So the intensity of our emotion is not as intense as theirs, but is much more significant, is much more powerful. We're the movers and shakers. We're the ones that are feeding God. We are the purpose of creation. So however intense we get it, what we're doing is very powerful. And if you're feeling this love, you're in a space of ratzu. That's what we meant by klois hanefesh, by the extinguishing of the soul. You're just ratzu. You're just racing to God. You don't want this life. You don't want this reality. You don't want to serve. Serve? Yeah, do a mitzvah, do a good deed, give charity, keep kosher. Shabbos, what does that have to do with anything? I don't want kosher. I don't want Shabbos. My soul just wants God. Well, serve him. I don't want to serve him. I want God. So ratzu, racing, means it's an irrational movement. It's just an enormous intensity of emotion, of love. As we're saying, this gevura, it's so strong, it's so intense, it's just get me out of here. But wait, it's not what God wants. It's what I want, but it's not what God wants. So if my love is real, I have to push aside, throw away, put the brakes on what I want. Because if I really love God, I should be doing what he wants. And he wants the shuv. The shuv means come back down. The shuv means keep kosher. The shuv means keep Shabbos. The shuv means do a mitzvah. The shuv means learn Torah. The shuv means be in this world and transform this world to God's home. Bring Mashiach now. I don't want any of that. Okay, but God does. So it's almost like not there, This person has such intense longing for God, and he's told, put a coin in a charity box, open up a book, say another psalm, don't work on the Sabbath. Like, I don't want any of that stuff. I want God. Yeah, but if you really want God, then you really would want what God wants, and that's what he wants. So forget about what you want. Do what he wants. Okay, so then you can say, so what's this whole setup of such an intense love, such longing for God, such an intense gevura, not like a priest, like a Levite, not like kindness, like strength. What's the point of this enormous love that will never be fulfilled? That you're never getting what you want. I mean, not if you're going to think about God and not yourself. If you think about yourself, you would get what you want and your soul would expire and you die. And if you think about what God wants, you put aside everything you want and you serve. So what would be the point of this love when the love is, by definition, going to be an unquenched love that will just not be fulfilled? What do you think? Why would we want to have such a love When in the end of the day, we actually don't want the love. We don't want the point of the love. We want you to come back down and put that coin in that charity box and keep kosher and keep Shabbos. So why are we cultivating a love that we're never supposed to fulfill? Any thoughts on that? Well, how I would understand it is the more I love, the more I have this passion and focus that then I have to channel into the service. So if I didn't have this strong love, and I believe in God, and I know he's the boss, and I know he made a bunch of rules, and I know I should follow those bunch of rules, and that's the way you can live your life, and probably there are a number of Jews that do. I believe in God, check. I believe he made the rules, check. I believe he's watching me, check. I believe I better follow his laws, check. So I do them. But when you serve that way, it's like almost like if a student would tell me, what grade do you need to pass? Like, what are you aiming for, a pass? You know?
Well, it seems like a robot to me, kind of thing.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Yeah, exactly, Fegachai. That it's, you want to call it robotic, or like just skating on, like, do I have to? You know, like if you're teaching law and someone says, okay, well, do you have to? Like, what's the minimum we can get away with, you know, in terms of what we have to do, in terms of what we're not allowed to do, like skating on thin ice of just, okay, God, I give in to you, you're God, fine, I'll serve you, all right, what do I have to do? And again, at least that's a belief in God, at least that's a belief that translates into service, so, you know, it could be a lot worse, but it could be a lot better. And when we cultivate a love, including this love, which is a love that by definition will never be fulfilled, there's a point to it. And the point is, to use Fegachai's term, you escape being a robot. It's so meaningful. You have such passion that you're now translating into commitment. So, and this is of course true for all of Tanya, right? We're almost at the end of this first section of Tanya. There's 53 chapters. We're deep in chapter 50. The very beginning of Tanya, which flows through all 53 chapters, is we want to serve God completely. But how? How can you serve God completely when he wants every thought, every movement, every action, every word? How can you give him all that? Always, all the time. And the premise of the Alter Rebbe, expounded throughout these 53 chapters, is by developing feeling, by loving and awe, by love and awe, by really loving God and really having awe of God. And then everything else is just natural. Everything else is just how you express that love. If you love someone, you want to be with them. If you love someone, you want to give to them. If you have awe of someone, you want to be nullified before them. So I want to give to God. I want to be with God. I want to be nullified to God. Great. All that translates into absolute service with every thought, every speech, every action, every nuance, every emotion. That's just the natural follow-through of the strong feeling for God. So when we're creating in this chapter this love that is not going to get fulfilled, so why do that to a person? Why do that to yourself? Because it's going to be such a passion, such a drive. It's such a strong love. And all that strength will be translated to the shuv, to the come back to planet Earth and give charity, and keep Shabbos, and keep kosher, and dress modestly, and refrain from gossip. And all of those laws are now full of that passion, because that's why you're doing them. That's why you're here and not a flying soul out there, you know, in planet Atzilus. You're here because this is what God wants, and all of your love for God is now expressed in the details of his service. So that's what the Rebbe is saying here, that your love is so strong. It's a Levite love. That's like a messianic strong love. And just like those angels that are angels of fire, that are angels of emotion, that are racing to God and have to come back down, this love makes us race to God. We just want God. We don't want anything of this world. But we're going to come back down, and we're going to serve with all the passion of that race. We're going to translate into our service. And that's why it's worthwhile. That's why God wants it.
Can you say possibly that it will be attainable at the times of Mashiach?
That's an interesting question. It's such an interesting question. Will the love be attainable at the times of Mashiach? Yes, but it will feel a little different in the times of Mashiach. Meaning, the reason why it will be attainable is because God, in his essence, will be here and will be revealed. So we will have it. Why am I saying it'll be a little different is thirst is when you don't have something. And thirst is a strong component of this love. So the desire for God exclusively we will have, and that will be fulfilled. But there won't be the thirst factor, which is part of this love, because we won't be thirsty for God. We'll have God, and then we'll want more, and we'll have more, and then we'll want more, and we'll have more, because God's infinite. But even though we'll always want more, it's not the same thirst like if you don't have. And we will have. God will be at home in this world. Home means completely revealed. Completely revealed. What does that mean when God, who cannot be seen, will be seen? We'll find out. But we know that's what it's going to be. God will be completely revealed in every single flesh. Physical. Physically, we will see God, and not just us holy ladies studying Tanya. All creation will see God. Everyone will have this. So we're going to want him. We're going to have him. We're going to want more, of course. And there'll always be more, and there will always be a push. It'll be an eternal push because however much you have, God's infinite. So you'll always want more, but it won't be that same like sick love, like love sick, like wanting so desperately because you don't have. No, we'll want, but we'll want from a place of fullness, not from a place of hunger, if that makes sense.
Well, maybe we could just practice, like live Geuladik by just try and feel, even if we can't quite obtain it, right? Like the idea is to live in a Mashiach reality. So try, even though you can't really get to it, but you taste it, like
Try
the
to live
Hasidus
like
taste it. Yeah,
like not like we're lacking, but like
Bellis,
we're full,
right.
like we have.
I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know.
Well, I would think how we would translate that to our reality would be this sense of, you see, when we do that, of course, we make it much smaller than the real concept. But at the same time, I think what you're saying makes sense because we're supposed to live Mashiach. And I actually think that's a lot of the idea of living with bitachon, living with trust. To me, that's really that concept in a nutshell. Meaning it's very interesting how there's so much emphasis by the Rebbe on living with trust. And we see this in so many letters and so many concepts of the Rebbe, so many talks develop this idea of trust. And what trust means is look in the world and see God. If I look in the world and see what we'll call reality, it could be a scary, terrifying place. If I look in the world and see God, well, all is good, it's all God. So looking in the world with the eyes of Hasidus means looking in the world with trust and seeing God. And when you look at the world and see God, you're living Mashiach. So I think that would probably be the best way to attain it. Like, I'm thirsty. I want you. God says, I'm right here. I'm in this world. All the energy of redemption is already here. I'm here. And when we look with trust, we see him. And we say, yeah, this is a world of God. This is a world of good. Relax. It's all God. Relax. It's all good. Well, my physical eye doesn't see that. Okay, but my mind's eye does. So it's my Hasidic eye with my mind's eye. I could look in the world and see God. I could look in the world and see good. So that would be living Mashiach, because that's exactly how we'll live by Mashiach. And that's why I'm saying we'll want him. We won't want him from a place of desperation, of absolute thirst. We'll want him from a place of, I'm fed and it tastes so good, I just want more and more and more. I'm full, I'm satiated, but you know what? I just need more of this. It's so good. However much I got, it's not enough. So when we look in the world with the eyes of Hasidus, with the eyes of trust, we look in the world and we see God, we are living with him, knowing we have him, and still wanting more. I think that would be like the way to do it. And that's definitely what we all, I'm sure, are working on, which is looking at the world and seeing God. That's sort of the core. If we strip away all the other language, it's the core of almost any service we're doing nowadays, is look at the world and trust. Look at the world and see God. And that means look at the world with the eyes of Mashiach. Anyone else? Any other thoughts on this? So that was really nice, bringing in the whole Mashiach connection in a very real way. Thank you, Froma. That was great, especially on the Mittler Rebbe's day. Very, very, very appropriate. So we just said B'chinas Ratzu V'Shuv, right? We just brought in that concept, which we just explained, which we said the source is a verse about the chayos, about the holy animals, meaning the angels of the world of Yetzirah, the world of emotion, the animals of emotion that are racing to God and have to come back. And this is the pulse of the music, of the song of the Levites, the race and the return. The pulse of these holy animals, of these angels of the world of Yetzirah, the race to God, the return. And this is the pulse of our service as well. If we have or have not attained this level of, this is the pulse of our service. If our service is alive, if our service has passion, if our service has feeling, this is the pulse of all of our service. Again, different levels, different types of love, different details. But the pulse, the beat, is the race to God and the return. The race to God, like Fegachaya said, we don't want to be robots. To have passion, to have feeling, to have drive, to have commitment, and the return. To put God's desires first. To really love him. You know, it's sort of like, it's like if you love someone and you want to buy them a present. So what do you think? What would I like? What's my favorite color? That's what I'll get them. What's my favorite chocolate? That's what I'll buy for them. No. What do they like? What's their color? Do they even like chocolate? Right? So when I really love, I'm focused on the one who I love and what he or she wants. And that's what I do to express the love, to express the relationship. So the ratzu, the pulse, is the race, is the love, is the ecstasy, is the passion, and the return. Because if I really love God, it's about what gives him pleasure, what gives him delight, what he loves and wants. So why does he want me to race if he wants me to return? Because now I'm returning with all the passion of the race channeled in the return. And that's what I'm saying. This is a basic beat. This is the pulse of a Jew service. Shehi b'chinas ava aza. That this is this enormously strong, powerful love. Ava aza zu kishal hevas hayotze min habezek. Like the flame that comes from the bezek. So there's different interpretations what the bezek means, but this actually goes back to this verse about the love, about the ratzu v'shuv, achayos ratzu v'shuv, and these angels racing and returning like the flame from the bezek. That was their movement. Ratzu v'shuv, the race and the return, like the flame from the bezek. What's the bezek? So commentators say a bezek was a tool used for the smelting of gold, to burn out the impurities. And you saw the fire and then it went back in. The fire flickered out and went back in. That's the ratzu, the race, and the shuv, the return of the angels, like the flame from this bezek. Let's say it's like a flame from the lightning. That's the pulse of our service. And it's interesting, I think it's interesting that the bezek is viewed as this tool of smelting, of burning out impurities. Because that's really thematic to what Tanya is talking about. That's actually the last vision the Alter Rebbe gives us. The end of the 53 chapters, the very end of the 53rd chapter. The Rebbe speaks how through our service, we're charring away our own impurities. And there's a beautiful vision of the Rebbe, beautiful metaphor of the Rebbe, where the Rebbe speaks of our love for God, our service of God. And the Rebbe speaks of a smith. I don't know if he's dealing with bezek and it's a goldsmith, or if it's a silversmith. I think in the mashal, the Rebbe says that it's silver, so I'll be faithful to that mashal, to that parable, though I'm reminded of it by this concept of the bezek, where you're burning out the impurities of the gold, where the silversmith is cooking the silver, right? He's smelting it to burn away the impurities. And as he's smelting it, the fire is getting hot. Well, the silver is going through fire to burn out those impurities. So we got to be very careful. Because if we make the fire too hot, we're going to destroy the silver. It's not going to be good anymore. We're going to corrupt it by the fire. But if the fire is not hot enough, it's going to have impurities. It's not going to be pure silver. So how does the silversmith know exactly when he reached that point, the perfect point that all the impurities are burnt away, but it's good? It says as he's stirring his cauldron, as he's heating up the silver, he keeps looking at the silver. And when the silver is a perfect mirror, when he looks in that silver and sees his own face reflected, that's the moment. And that's when he takes the silver out. And the Rebbe says that's God and the Jew. Whatever God's doing through us, whatever God's doing to us, as we go through whatever fires we go through, God's looking, God's watching. And when his face is reflected in the silver, when the face of God shines through the face of the Jew, that's the moment. That's when we went through that bezek and the flames are coming out. That's when all the impurities are removed, and what's transparent through the Jew is the face of God. So our love is the pulse, our love is the return, our love connects to this cauldron, this bezek, this smelting of the gold through this process of the love and the return and the love and the return and the love and the return. We're going through the fires, not fires of negativity, fires of our own love, and it's burning away all the impurities. So it's the face of God shining through the face of the Jew.